On the road with the Western Ag Network. Brought to you by AgRisk Advisors.
This week finds us out on the road once again in Steamboat Springs, Colorado for the Colorado Cattlemen's Association's annual convention. And our convention coverage is brought to you by AgRisk Advisors. For more on all of their risk management tools for producers, visit AgRisk Advisors online. Well, it is a busy time here at the annual meeting of the Colorado Cattlemen's Association as cattlemen and women work on multiple issues impacting the livestock industry, not only here in Colorado, but across the West as well. This week, cattlemen and women are gathered in Steamboat Springs for the annual convention of the Colorado Cattlemen's Association. And joining us from Walden, Colorado is president of CCA, Mr. Philip Anderson. And Philip, over 250 people so far are registered. I know we're going to have a lot of folks driving in, but it's a beautiful day up here on the mountain.
Yes, it is wonderful. And Lane, we've had some moisture, lots of rain. Lots of cool weather, makes the grasses grow really good, you know, and we're looking already at some good hay production. And also the grasses out in the sagebrush and the BLM Forest Service are looking wonderful. So most folks have their cattle out on their allotments already and seeing some shine in the calves that are growing, and it's looking great.
You know, the purpose of the annual meeting, of course, is to set policy, update policy, and really look towards the future of the livestock industry. And Colorado Cattlemen's is the oldest livestock association in the U.S. What does that mean for you as president to carry that legacy with you and help set a strong foundation for the next decades to come?
Well, you know, that's good that you ask or say that. I remember reading some history about the Colorado Cattlemen's Association, and it all began with cattle theft. And, you know, the development of brands and brand inspection and that kind of thing. And you ask me how that affects me as far as a rancher from 4 generations in Walden, from a homesteaded operation where my family and I operate out of Walden, have since 1919 when my grandfather was there. It means so much that I've been able to represent the Colorado Cattlemen's Association and follow up my forefathers in development of policy that affect the state cattlemen and the state livestock growers. And then also it's given me an opportunity to travel a little bit here in the United States through NCBA and find out what happens in other parts of the country that we have the same issues with.
Yep.
And most of it has come through overreach by the federal government of some sort or another.
Well, you know, we talk about that federal overreach, and right now I know you want to get back into that committee meeting, but a lot of discussion around the BLM's proposed conservation rule. There was pretty much zero input from the stakeholders out in the countryside on the creation of this rule. And I know we've seen a little bit of an extension on the actual comment period, but as a producer, what concerns you about the Bureau of Land Management pushing this rule forward that could upend the Taylor Grazing Act's multi-use mandate for grazing on these public lands?
Well, you said quite a little bit there in just a couple of sentences. Lane, you're exactly right. There was probably no input from the producers or from the allotment owners in the development of that conservation management plan. And what we are afraid of here in Colorado is the fact that the conservation non-governmental organizations have deeper pockets than we do, and they do not make their living from raising cattle. And we cannot continue to go down this road when we're forced to compete on a range that in some cases the only way it's utilized good is with cattle grazing. And I would have to say that if we have the opportunity and we're given the opportunity to get through the door more than 15 days, that's what they've given us now. What a slap in the face. You know, we asked for a 150 days extension or longer than that, and maybe even for them to vacate that rule and start rethinking, but open the door and allow cattlemen and livestock producers across the United States, especially in Colorado and Wyoming and these these northern Rocky Mountain states, we have a lot of ground that we have taken care of for years and done a good job. And we don't want that to go away just because the urbanites, I don't want to say that in the wrong way, but those folks don't believe that we're taking care of the land, which, you know, history shows that we are.
Now you talk about government and its impact on so many different levels, but you talked about the urban citizenship of Colorado as well and across the nation. But obviously, wolf reintroduction is going to occur here in the state of Colorado. The voters pushed that through, and now the plan has been a lot of work went into the plan of that management of the wolves. But in your neck of the woods, you don't even have to reintroduce wolves onto your operation and to your neighbors because they're already coming down from Wyoming.
Yeah, 2 years ago, we experienced a male and a female that got together and had 8 pups. And with that, along came a lot of depredation on a couple of ranchers' cattle and a couple other ranchers' livestock, guarding dogs and working dogs. And we have been really working closely with our local CPW agents, our local game wardens, so to speak, and we've made a lot of progress. All that being happening at the same time that the Colorado Wildlife Commission was putting together the wolf plan. And the wolf plan has its issues, obviously. You're not going to make a plan in 24 or 18 months that's going to satisfy everybody. But we can't, in my opinion, we can't sit back and say, well, we're still going to try to get rid of the plan. We're still going to try to get rid of the wolves. We don't want the wolves introduced. But what happens with the wolves that migrate here from the north or the west? They are not going to be taken care of any differently than we would be able to do if we had a good wildlife or a good wolf plan, which we have right now. It has to have some adjustments. We all have to work together in that whole deal. It's unfortunate that the people in Colorado were able to be on the top of that ballot by 1.5%. But we all know now that it is law. Cattlemen now have to work toward making sure that we have control of problem wolves. We don't hate wolves. We don't hate the idea at all, but we have to, as livestock producers, protect our own businesses. And before if we lose, even at today's market prices, if we lose a few cattle, that is our profit margin for the year. And there's compensation plans and all kinds of things like that for depredation that haven't been proven yet. I know we had some Senate bills and some House bills that went through, and both of them passed with good, solid support. And then our governor saw fit to delete or veto the one bill that would have given us some actual control management, lethal control management of problem animals.
And what's it like working with your fellow producers at the Wyoming Stock Growers and Montana Stock Growers Association who have dealt with this wolf issue since the 90s, but also know that they've made a public stance, as well as the states of Wyoming and Montana, that they will not be sending wolves to Colorado? What does that mean to you, knowing that the states that have had to deal with this and now manage those wolves themselves? I guess, what's your take on that?
Well, I don't know exactly what to think about it, but goodness gracious, I'm glad that they did. However, you know, we have to get past that too, because they're going to come from somewhere, and hopefully they're not coming from a place where they're already proven depredators on livestock. Right now we're looking at issues with them coming from eastern Washington or eastern Oregon, those places where the wolf is not endangered. You know, Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho said, no, we don't want you to go. And that'd be fine with me if we can't find any, because then maybe we'll sit back and say, well, maybe this isn't such a good idea. But in that same word, there'll be wolves. And somebody's going to gain financially on that. Some state will gain financially on that. We will, even though Washington has said, we will give you wolves for free. I'm not sure that free is the same word that I understand.
Well, I know it's a busy day here in Steamboat Springs, but the Colorado Cattlemen's Association is looking forward to their new office digs as well. Let's just talk about the collaboration and the opportunity to be there at the brand new and improved National Western Stock Show.
So there's a lot of work that's been done already on the National Western Stock Show grounds. We have purchased a share in the old livestock exchange building. We have come up with a lot of roadblocks that have come into our sites, historical building use. Our partners in this sale have not finished all what they want to do, so we're waiting for them to finish sales of part of the building also, and upgrading some other things going on. So right now we're looking at probably 2025 before we actually can set foot inside the door. Now, that being said, Lane, we understand that right now they're doing some work on the heating, ventilation, electrical right now. And so that's always a hope that we can continue to move forward. We're renting or leasing a spot now down in western part of Denver, and I think it's working out okay, but it's not something that we had planned on ahead of time. So budgetary wise, we have to be real cognizant of where we're at.
Well, it's just like working cows. You kind of go with the flow on it some days.
Yes. They might run the wrong way for a little while, and we'll have to go catch up with them.
Phil, last question. What does it mean to come to the annual convention every year? What is your favorite part?
My favorite part of the convention are the committee meetings that are going on right now, because it gives a chance for us to talk directly either with the federal government employees and those people that make decisions, the state government employees, or those people that make those decisions. We can set policy that we can all discuss, man to man, woman to woman, woman to man, whatever. We can discuss those policies and where we're going with them here, and air our dirty laundry here rather than put it out in the public and let them take care of our dirty laundry for us. So I enjoy the public, or these meetings, these committee meetings mostly, and the men and women that are the chairman and the vice chairman of those committees are so important to us, because they take the time and find the issues and bring them right here in front of us, and we can talk about it.
Well, and is the basis of the policy book all comes out of those meetings and then set for the future of Colorado's livestock industry. So, Philip, thank you so much for joining us here today.
It's been a pleasure, Lane. I thank you very much for inviting me to say something. I just encourage all livestock producers across this state and across the nation to get involved now. Don't wait for somebody else to do the job for you.
Very, very wise words. And I tell you what, friends, we're going to continue to have some great conversations from Steamboat Springs here this week. And again, a big shout out to our friends at AgRisk Advisors for bringing you our On the Road convention series here this year. For more information, of course, just visit agriskadvisors.com. We're going to have more conversations, as I mentioned, throughout the week here on our social media, radio, and TV programs on the Western Ag Network.
Ready for a real PRF partner?
He was willing to track us for a year and provide that data back to us for a year. That's a guy making a pretty big investment.
At AgRisk Advisors, this isn't our first rodeo. We are one of the most experienced in pasture rangeland forage. Honesty, commitment, trust. Many companies use these words. At AgRisk Advisors, we earn them.
As we continue to have our conversations here in Steamboat at the Colorado Cattlemen's Association Annual Convention. Again, our coverage is brought to you by our friends at AgRisk Advisors. For more, visit AgRisk Advisors online for more of those risk management tools. Well, every year, a ranch here in the state of Colorado is honored with the Colorado Leopold Conservation Award. And this year, the LeValley family has been given that award, and we're going to be catching up with Mark and Ross LeValley here at this year's CCA convention. And I tell you what, guys, when we look at the Leopold Award, obviously this is award given in recognition of Aldo Leopold and his work in conservation, and this is really focused on private land conservation. But Mark, for yourself, I guess, what's it mean to be here and recognized by your peers in the industry?
You know, when we first heard we won the award, I didn't know what to think, you know, but as it's gone on, I'm thinking, wow, this is pretty special for the ranch.
And Ross, for yourself, being that next generation, being a part of it, what's it mean to come here and be recognized for your work, your dad's work, but your entire family's generational work in conservation?
Oh yeah, it's a big honor to receive this award. You've seen the other ranches that have won and what the award means. You know, with us being on private and public land, the conservation efforts that we put into it, it's nice to be recognized. And then it's just a big honor to be included with the names and other outfits that have been given this award.
Now, let's just talk about the history of your family ranch. How many generations is it, and just the role that it plays in Colorado agriculture, Mark?
Yeah, so Ross will be the 5th generation to come back to the ranch. You know, I think every one of our generations has added a little ranch, another piece of property to the place, you know, and so we started out back in the late 1800s, and it's just evolved. It's kind of gone like this, but it's, you know, you just keep adding to it and fighting the drought and getting along. So that's kind of how we got to where we are today. And a lot of our conservation is because we were, you know, we had to change what we were doing because of the drought or different situations. And so it's brought us to get innovative and do irrigation projects and do this and that and pipelines to get water to cattle where we didn't have it before.
So for our viewers that maybe aren't from Colorado, let's just talk about the part of the state you're in, what that terrain looks like, and then the type of cattle you're raising as well.
So we're in south central Colorado, southwestern Colorado, I should say, about the center of the state, a little town called Hotchkiss. We're south of that is our main headquarters. It's kind of high plateau country where we run. It's fairly dry country. We get about 13 inches of moisture a year. We have a kind of a high desert area where we can stay out most of the year. We have to come in late November and we go back out in May. We irrigate about 800 acres, and we run on about 6,000–7,000 acres of private ground, plus our BLM and forest.
Yep. And Ross, maybe let's just talk about the conservation efforts that you guys have put into place. Obviously, it's a great collaboration with a lot of different entities just to make a ranch work these days. But you're talking about water lines and everything like that. What has that process been like, in just working with agencies and other groups just to be able to have a better impact on the environment and have better grazing opportunities as well?
Yeah, we jumped through a lot of hoops to get a lot of stuff done that we want to do. All that water comes from our private ground, and then it goes out into the public land that we graze. But it doesn't just help our cows, it helps everything. There's a lot of wildlife that call that place home. And obviously we do it for our cows' benefit, but it helps everything out. And we put a lot of effort into keeping that stable out there so that we can use it. And then that line, it goes a lot of other places too. It goes into some other private ground. It just keeps everything rolling for us to keep our numbers up and be able to run the number of cows that we do. And otherwise we wouldn't be able to use that country on these dry years because there is no live water. We're just relying on ponds and snow runoff, and sometimes it's not there.
Yeah. Well, you know, before we started having this conversation, I said I wanted to ask, you know, Mark, for yourself, what were some of the conservation practices or ideas that maybe you brought back to the operation as a 4th generation producer? And I'll ask Ross the same question, but what were one of those ideas that maybe your forefathers were like, what the heck? Because I always joke when I came back from college, I stacked hay a little different because they taught us how to do that. My dad always jokes, you learn that in college, because where our place is at in Montana, it didn't work how they wanted us to stack it in college. But so we always joke, did you learn that in college? But what were some practices or ideas that you brought back that maybe were implemented right away or implemented over several years?
You know, I think a lot of it was improvement with our cattle, genetic improvements we made to get more pounds of beef off the same amount of acreage. far as some other ideas, you know what, 2002, I graduated from college in 80, but 2002 was probably the first drought that I had to experience running the ranch. Big time drought. We had one 77, but it was just a year. But anyway, I thought we got to do something because we're out of water. We can't even irrigate or raise enough for our cattle. So Bureau of Reclamation, NRCS, we got together and said, we're going to pipe this ditch. And since then we put up 6 center pivots, and we are now delivering water year round to our place where we couldn't before. And so that's made a huge difference in my part. And it's something I can hand to these boys of ours that can take off and go from there and try to do better.
Ross, what is something you and your brother maybe have talked about or tried to implement and had those conversations at the kitchen table?
A lot of the conservation stuff was already in play when I've been moved back, and it's had a good system, so we've just kind of rolled with that. We've done, with my ideas, we've kind of worked with the genetics a little bit on some of these cows, just kind of improving them more and more as we can, getting them raising some cattle that are just good for our country, you know, with the high elevation, and then also being kind of out on a high desert too in the spring, so they got to travel to water a lot. So we got a lot of heterosis and longevity in our cattle, and then also having some high elevation genetics as they end up getting to 9,000 feet when they're in the middle of the summer. So kind of got to cover all boards and stay healthy and be able to keep those calves alive coming off the forest permits and high country ground and coming home.
You know, obviously the Leopold Award is a great recognition for the hard work of all the generations of your family operation, but there's a lot of other producers out there too that that work on behalf of the land and their animals and are stewards of their land and conservationists as well. But you know, this award really puts a highlight on your operation too. How important is it, especially in a state like Colorado, where voters play a big role in production agriculture and our landscape and our wildlife management? How important is it, though, to tell your ranch's stewardship story through this honor as well?
Well, you know, I think it's a lot, especially with the sage grouse. We have endangered sage grouse population on our BLM and on our private ground, and you know, we've been able to showcase what we've done there so we can both survive. Because the grazing would probably be on the way out in favor of the grouse if they had their way. But we've been able to show that we can coexist, and the water that we put in those pipelines favors the grouse, and we got a rest rotation put in, and so you know, this just exemplifies it, you know. And my wife's done a lot of work too along the way on the range improvements, you know, and just knows range very well, and so that's something she's handed to this guy and helped get along.
And what's that been like, learning from your mom as well? Robbie LeValley, of course, is who we're speaking of. We've interviewed her a lot here on the network, but what does that mean?
Oh, she's taught me a lot, especially just grazing some of that public ground where a lot more things are just very touch and go, and just treating the ground right so it takes care of you. Same thing with the cattle. You know, there's, especially in this state that we're in, you know, everything, politics and everything plays into it, but it's still a very ag-based state. So, you know, we've had a good year this year with moisture, and so we're gonna hopefully reap some benefits from it. But you know, you take care of the livestock in the ground, and it'll take care of you.
And these calf prices are pretty nice to see right now too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's nice to be in the business.
Nice to be in the business. We wish we all had a few more head of cattle with these nice prices,
yeah.
but we know the game.
Yeah, your banker waves at you going down the street. Life's good.
Yep. Well, hey, what's a message you have to the Sand County Foundation, who, of course, administers the Leopold Award, the Colorado Cattlemen's Ag Trust, or the Colorado Cattlemen's Association? What's the last message you just have to them and the supporters of this great conservation award?
Well, I think I really appreciate them looking at us and saying, you know, you guys are it. We think you're the best this year, and I appreciate their support of us and all the partners that are in there. It's amazing how many collaborative people you can get along with, you know, and they're all wanting one thing. They want some conservation. They like to see wildlife. They like to see us on the land taking care of it, and that's what we're about.
Ross, any last thoughts?
Well, we appreciate the honor, and we know how big it is, and being here, we see even how bigger it is than we thought. So just appreciate everything, and really honored to be a part of it.
Well, again, and we got Mark and Ross LeValley, and a big recognition for their family and their ranch with the 2023 Leopold Conservation Award. I want to be cool like these guys. I'll put my sunglasses on. But it's a great time right here this week at the Colorado Cattlemen's Association convention. We're going to have more conversations throughout the week. But again, a big congratulations to the LeValley family and all of those producers out there that play a key role in managing our lands and taking care of our livestock as well. A lot of key priorities for the nation's oldest livestock association here in Steamboat Springs this week. Hey, don't forget to follow us along on the road throughout this summer by subscribing to our YouTube and Facebook channels. And of course, tune into us on the radio and our local TV stations, where Western Ag Network will continue to bring you the top stories impacting Western producers. I'm Lane Nordland.
On the road with the Western Ag Network. Brought to you by AgRisk Advisors.